Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
All right, thanks a lot, Jess, and thank you for tuning into the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. I'm Rich Walsh. I'll be joined by Andrew Fillipponi in a matter of moments over to 93.7 The Fan Cam. And you can give us a call, 412-575-2600. First day of OTAs, Andrew. No Aaron Rodgers, no DK Metcalf, no TJ Watt. Kind of expected the TJ Watt thing, but no Aaron Rodgers yet. Mason Rudolph was the star out there today, saying all the right things, doing all the right things. And, you know, maybe not a bad option. I think that's a better option than Kirk Cousins, that's for sure.
Well, Kirk Cousins of a couple of years ago, no comparison. Kirk Cousins is a guy that would throw 30 touchdown passes in his sleep. Now, he would fold like a cheap suit in the playoffs, but was a guy that put up big numbers and got paid accordingly. The Kirk Cousins we saw against the Steelers in Week 1 last year, and the Kirk Cousins at the end of last year is not someone that you want to trade for and give big money to. So I don't think that'll happen. I don't think that the Falcons are going to cut him. I don't think that they're going to be forced by him to move him to another team. So we wait for Aaron Rodgers. And I love what Terry Bradshaw said about Aaron Rodgers today. Absolutely ripping him to shreds and really being critical of the Steelers in their pursuit of Aaron Rodgers and why they would act like this regarding a 41-year-old quarterback. So, yeah, I'm more of a Mason Rudolph guy. Not that I think Mason is going to be great, but I'd be more interested in watching Mason Rudolph and Will Howard play quarterback this year than a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers.
Why do you think the Steelers are playing out this way? I mean, what do you think? What does your gut tell you?
Well, I think they believe that Aaron Rodgers is much better than I think he is. I think they believe he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL and that he was just in a bad situation last year with the Jets. And they blame the Jets more for the way things went there than Aaron Rodgers. And there is some truth to that. But I also think at this age, it's nearly impossible to play quarterback at a high level. We've only really seen one guy do it. That was Tom Brady. And I just don't think Aaron Rodgers has the same passion for football that Tom Brady does. Cam Hayward talked today about how, hey, I skipped OTAs last year and look at the season I had. But Cam was doing things while he was away from the Steelers on his own time to get himself ready to play. Aaron Rodgers is going to concerts in Austin, Texas, and doing podcast appearances with Joe Rogan. He does not seem to me like a guy that is doing everything he can to prepare himself for another NFL season. So I don't think it'll go well. I think it'll be a disaster, actually. And it sounds like the Steelers think that he's a missing piece player that is good enough to get them over the hump and get them to playoff wins for the first time since 2016.
You know, it's unlike Mike Tomlin and the Steelers to do it this way, to play it out this way. Why do you think they're letting Aaron Rodgers dictate the terms? I mean, couldn't you have some kind of deal, Pony, and just say, hey, you don't have to come to OTAs. Just we want you signed, we want you ready to go, and we'll let you come in for the mandatory minicamp, and then we don't have to see you for July.
Well, you know, you could say that to him, but I think he should be here. Ben Roethlisberger in his last year with the Steelers was here for the first day of OTAs. Why? Because he was in a new offense, and he had Matt Canada calling the plays, and Matt Canada was a nincompoop, but it was a new offense and new terminology. And so Ben, as the leader of the team and the quarterback, wanted to get on the same page. And I respected him for that. I thought that was a shrewd move by Ben. Now, as it turned out, Canada had no clue what he was doing, and really Ben only played well that last year when he improvised and went off script late in games. But at least he made an attempt to try to understand the offense and get as much time in it as humanly possible. Aaron Rodgers isn't doing that, and I think it comes back to Aaron Rodgers' arrogance. I think Aaron Rodgers just believes that he's so talented and so good at football that he could walk in here and play well. And I think he's in for a rude awakening. I don't see that happening, and I think it's going to be an issue all year. So we'll see, but I don't think this is going to have a fairy tale ending for Aaron Rodgers.
Well, we'll get to more on the Steelers in a second, but first I'm going to talk a little bit about our live poll question sponsored by Xfinity. Just scan the QR code in the right-hand corner. Could the Pirates and Paul Skenes get a long-term extension done? I don't think it'll ever happen. I think Paul Skenes is probably, maybe 2-3 more years here in a Pirates uniform. Our viewers think not a chance. What do you think? Anything Could it be possible at all? Could you throw, say, 8 years, $200 million at him?
Yeah, that wouldn't do it. I think they blew their chance. I think this would be the window to get it done. And, you know, why would he want to sign on for more years in Pittsburgh when he looks at the team around him and the struggles of the organization and the franchise? So I think maybe he would have considered it. Like, let's say they were off to a great start this year and he was pitching well and the team was in a good spot. Maybe they could approach him and say, hey, Paul, let's guarantee you some money right now, buddy, and give us a year or two of free agency back. And maybe he would have been amenable or open to that. But based on their struggles, I don't see why he would want to extend his stay in Pittsburgh.
Insurance policy. You saw what happened to Jared Jones.
Yeah, well, I think he could blow his arm out and still get the money.
You do?
I think if he had one Tommy John, he'd be fine. You know, a second one is a bigger issue, but it happens so often now, and pitchers come back from it so efficiently that I don't think it would scare a team off if he had one Tommy John surgery. Some of the great pitchers of the last 30 years have had Tommy John and have still gotten big contracts and gotten money and huge offers and everything else. So that would stink for the Pirates because that would be a year here that would go awry, down the toilet, down the tubes. But no, I don't think it would be the end of the world for him if indeed he did need something like that down the road.
Well, this is Pony's favorite tweet of the night, and this is our Xfinity tweet of the night. Steelers legend Terry Bradshaw calls the team's interest in Aaron Rodgers a joke. Said Bradshaw, that guy needs to stay in California, go somewhere and chew on park and whisper to gods out there. I don't think I've ever heard the phrase chew on bark. Have you?
No. It is a shot at the kind of eccentric lifestyle that Aaron Rodgers leads. And the issue for Aaron Rodgers right now is when you are no longer a great quarterback, you leave yourself vulnerable for shots like this to be fired at you. You know, when you're winning 4 MVPs, you can basically do whatever you want in your offseason. But now you're old, and now you're struggling. You were 5-12 last year. I just think if he's not there at all for these OTAs in minicamp, he really surrenders the right to get on his receivers for not knowing what they're doing, because he will have given up an opportunity to work with them more. And I really believe if Aaron Rodgers was signed right now, Richie, and in Pittsburgh, I think DK Metcalf would have been there today. I think DK Metcalf looked at this week OTAs and said, what am I doing? Why do I need to be there if my quarterback's not there? And so we'll see what happens with that. I mean, I just feel like it has a trickle-down effect. I guess I get TJ Watt because his contract situation is unsettled. And, you know, he had a great season the year that he missed all of training camp with the hold-in. But for Aaron Rodgers, you can't afford to do that as a quarterback when you're at this stage in your career, to just roll out of bed and expect to throw 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in a win against the Ravens. That's not how it works for him.
All right, 412-575-2600 is the hotline. Give us a call. A couple lines open right now, and you brought up receivers, Pony. Do you think that this receiving core is better than it was last year? Basically, you traded Van Jefferson out for Robert Woods, essentially. I mean, DK Metcalf, I think, is better than George Pickens. Maybe a slight edge to this receiving core?
Yes, I think it is. I think it's better because you've also got Roman Wilson coming back, and Calvin Austin had a good year last year as far as number 3 wide receivers go. So it is better. It's not a ton better. You know, DK Metcalf is a legitimate number 1 wide receiver, and I think Robert Woods is a slight upgrade over Van Jefferson, but not much more than that. It's not one of the better wide receiver units in the NFL. That's something they got to come to grips with. And so that's the other thing with Aaron Rodgers. He's not going to have the wide receiver core he did last year in Green Bay. With New York, with Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson. And we'll see how the offensive line does. I mean, Broderick Jones was out there at left tackle today. That is a hugely important key or piece to their season, is what he does. And the guy we watched play right tackle last year was not very good. And if that guy is now, what you don't want to see is a bad right tackle become a bad left tackle, because that's a more important position. You hope that when he goes back to his natural position, his play improves. But I'm not totally convinced of that, Richie. I'm worried and nervous about their left tackle play this year with Broderick Jones.
Maybe that move will help get his head in the game. I think the mental part of the game was a big issue for Jones last year. Let's go out to Lou in North Turbane. How you doing, Lou?
Gentlemen, good evening. Thanks for taking the call. Big fan of the show. If Rodgers somehow hypothetically does not come here, what is the Steelers' cap situation right now, and can they add or add depth or at positions that they need? Like, where are we at with the cap space?
Lou, I appreciate the call. They're in a good situation right now. I don't think they're worried about money or cap. And Aaron Rodgers is what reportedly, I mean, he even said it on the Pat McAfee show that he would come here for $10 million. So they have a deal in place, it sounds like, and we're all guessing it's $10 million because that's what Aaron Rodgers said. If he doesn't come here, I'm sure they'll go out and sign someone like Carson Wentz or someone like that just to get 4 quarterbacks in here. I know. I don't think he would make the team. You would be stuck with Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, and Skylar Thompson. But maybe it's too late in the game, I think, to go out and spend that money, though, this year. Maybe you could get a guy that is a cap casualty or a guy that, is a training camp cut that maybe you would sign and you'd have to pay. But I don't think you'd be making major moves at this point. That was done a couple months ago.
Richie, you've seen these guys now both throw. Do you think Mason Rudolph's a lot better than Will Howard? Are you convinced that Rudolph would be the quarterback over Will Howard if it was down to those two guys?
Yeah, I'm convinced that Mason Rudolph is a quarterback. Yeah. And not only because of on the field and what my eyes see, but I think, he has the players around him supporting him. He's well-liked in that locker room. That's for sure. So I think he has the support of the players.
Does he look better to you than Justin Fields or Russell Wilson?
The 2023 version that we saw at the end of that year when he led them to the playoffs, I think looked better than both those guys. I think it's a better option. And I think the Steelers maybe thought it was a better option, too, because they had their chance to sign those other 2 guys, and they elected not to. All they had to do was match what the Jets offered Justin Fields, and they thought this was a better route.
Well, they also let Mason Rudolph walk to go to Tennessee for not a lot of money. So they were not even enamored with him then. So I have a hard time believing now that they think he's much better than those 2 guys. He just came at a better price, a more affordable price. They paid him to be a backup. But, I am a little bit interested in Rudolph. I'd like to see what it looks like with him given a chance to play extended games. And if it doesn't work, then let Howard play. He's not a young kid. He's not 20 or 21. He played at Kansas State for 4 years. Then he went to Ohio State and led him to a national championship. And if he's not any good, okay, well then you've got your answer. You're absolutely going into the 2026 draft trying to find your quarterback because your rookie quarterback isn't a franchise guy and your dumpster dive move in Mason Rudolph didn't work out. So that's how I would play it. And I would look at this as an exploratory year, as a way of looking to see what you have in both of those guys. They won't do it that way. They'll go with Aaron Rodgers or attempt to. And I don't think there's any way he gets benched, Richie. That's the thing. I think if Aaron Rodgers is here, it's his job unless he gets injured. And so we won't see Mason Rudolph and we won't see Will Howard at all this year.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. But don't you think maybe going back to that question you had about Mason Rudolph, it was a mutual parting of ways? I think Mason Rudolph wanted to go test the waters to see if he could be a starter, make a little bit more money.
I do.
And plus, I think the Steelers knew that they had to either give the job to Kenny Pickett or it was Russell Wilson that they were going to bring in there at that point. And, Mason Rudolph would have been, left out in the water again.
I mean, the doomsday scenario this year is that Kenny Pickett plays well in Cleveland. I mean, that would be an absolute nightmare.
He might not even make the team, though.
Fans.
Right?
Oh, I know. I mean, there's 4 guys there. And so you'd like to think that at least one of them is going to end up on a practice squad or get cut. And the question is, who do you do it with? I mean, I have a hard time believing that Dylan Gabriel, a 3rd-round pick, is not going to be on their active roster. I guess they could get rid of Joe Flacco because he's old. And, they don't maybe have a lot of use for Joe Flacco as a quarterback anymore because, again, what's his upside or ceiling because of his age? So maybe Flacco ends up being the odd man out and he's just there to mentor those guys in training camp in the preseason. But I think Flacco's better than all those guys right now. So I would expect Flacco actually, if everything's fair, to be their week 1 starting quarterback. And maybe in that scenario, Kenny would be on the outside looking in again. And if that happened, then that means he'd be looking for his 4th team, Richie, in 4 years, which would be in 4 years, which would be insane if that happens.
Yeah, I think whoever doesn't win the starting job, Kenny Pickett or Joe Flacco, is out. That's what I think. Kirk, out in Manor, how you doing, Kirk?
Pretty good, guys. How are you?
Good, thanks for calling.
Tonight. Hey, real quick, Why not give Rudolph the shot? Quit playing the Aaron Rodgers fiasco and take it from there, realistically. Come on.
Kirk, look, I get it, and a lot of fans are saying this right now because they're frustrated with what's going on. But you know what? People might not be frustrated in a month from now if Aaron Rodgers does sign, right? Just a waiting game.
Well, I think they'll be relieved that it's over. I don't think that he'll have silenced or shut up any doubts or critics, though, because he wouldn't have played any games in the next month. You know, what Aaron Rodgers needs is to go out there and turn back the clock and look like the Aaron Rodgers of old. And we're not going to see that until September, September 6th in New York. Which, by the way, Adam Schefter said the Steelers would give him as long as he wants. And if he showed up the week of the game, they'd still take him, which is crazy to me. I mean, but hey.
You might be right. I don't know about that. I heard it has to be by training camp, but who knows? If he's still out there and wants to play, obviously they would take a chance on him. Pony, things not looking good for the Pirates out in Arizona right now. Bases loaded. Mike Burrow's out of the game. You know, this could be their free fall. This is an important road trip for this team.
This could be their free fall. Have you watched the first third of the season?
Well, you know, I mean, it's pretty much over right now.
They're on pace to lose 107 games. They're
it's
on pace
over
to be
right
one of the
now.
worst teams in Pirates history.
To get the 55 wins, they got to do well, right? It keeps looking worse for this team. They can't hit. They have 3 hits right now.
Yeah, and Paul Skenes goes tomorrow, and you'd like to see him pitch well and get rewarded, but that hasn't happened in a while, Richie.
I know. So, could the Pirates and Paul Skenes come to a long-term extension? Our viewers say 76% of them say not a chance.
Not a chance.
Not a chance. That's why I don't think it happens either. All right, thanks a lot, Pony. See you next week. Hopefully we see you guys on KDKA News right now.